I'm going to talk now a bit about image transfer, which is another great technique that can be used in collage. It can be used as part of a piece in itself, or it can be added to other materials as well. It's very versatile. The only thing about it is a little bit touch and go. You have to persevere, because sometimes the print works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's to do with the amount of ink you put on. Sometimes it's to do with the image that you're transferring and the way that image has been printed. So you have to persevere. And I started this really because I was looking at the work of Robert Rackensberg, he had a technique called reverse image printing, which he used a lot with his work, and he didn't use the technique I'm going to show you, but he did soak images, photographic images from newspapers and magazines, from anything really, in solvent, terps, and he soaked them for quite a long time, and then he lifted them carefully, put them down onto paper, and then when they were dry, pressed them down, then when they were dry, he worked over the top with a fine back of a nib pen, the back of a nib, and the image came through. And I remember looking at his work thinking, this is really interesting. And I tried that. That is even more difficult to do. This one, gel printing, probably is the easiest way to do it, but it's still not easy. It's touch and go. So, Robert Rackensberg, if you want to have a look at some very good examples of image printing. Now, okay, here are some ones that I've done before we start. And these were taken from, some were taken from, I think were taken from Vogue. You see, the thing is, the slight problem is that some images will transfer and some won't. So obviously the ones I've brought in today, I have a better chance of transferring, and these ones were from Vogue, but I think Vanity Fair transfers. You have to experiment. Some magazines don't. Royal Geographic doesn't. I don't know why, something to do with the way it's printed. So some of the interesting ones don't, but so you have to hunt around for your images. But as I was doing a project based on faces and to do with women, it suited me anyway. It worked for me. So these are some of the results. And as you can see, that's a very clear one. Amazing to get an image like that. I don't know how I got it. Partly because it's with black, but also it's unusual to get a print as good as that. Mostly, which I quite like, they have a sort of ethereal, faded look about them. And that, to me, is what I really like about them. So we're going to try that now, and then I'm going to show you how you can paint on top of them as well. Now I'm using a gel plate. Now mine is looking a bit weather beaten, but it should be fine, we hope. It's floppy gelatine, and you keep it in its case that it comes in. You can order them online. It comes in that, and you should always store it in that. I'm not sure why, I think it keeps it a bit moist. Also, when you first start printing, you have to build up the ink a bit because it might be a bit sort of dehydrated, so the first print may not be very good. Right, now the very important thing is not to put too much paint on. It's not like other sorts of printing where you can't put enough on. It just isn't. You have to experiment with a small amount. So, I've got a few here which should print, if we're lucky, because they are pretty contrasting. You can see that in light and dark. You can do it with type. I've got a variety here, showing you. And then we'll choose one that I think has got a very good chance of printing. I like that one. I hope that'll print well. May not, actually, but this will print. It's the contrast bit that prints. And as I say, I'm using these from Vogue just because I know we've got a good chance of getting a print, but you can experiment with all sorts of other things. You just have to be prepared. Some of them won't work. That's a nice one too. Okay, so I've got some images there. Get them all ready. And because you don't want the ink to dry on the plate. So you have your images ready and you have your paper ready. And you can print onto, it doesn't have to be plain paper. It can be newsprint, it can be music, it can be type, or you can include them in a collage with other forms of paper. Okay, I'm going to start with that one because I like it, looks interesting, but we'll see if it's got enough contrast. Just there. Right, so as I've said before, not too much. Better to have too little than too much. It just doesn't work if you put a lot on. I'm going to put a few dots on. So the first one may not work because it's probably a bit dehydrated. And what's more, the blues run out, so we'll have green. Okay. I'm going to put little dots like that. When I started doing this, none of the images took, and I realised that it was because I just had too much ink on. And then have a piece of paper beside you to roll your brayer on, your roller, as well. That's a good idea. And a piece of paper to print on. There. And your image. So we'll roll out with the big one. Now I know it looks very little, but that's how it should look. Otherwise it's not going to work. It may be too little, but we're going to try it. Actually, I'm not going to put that one on first. I'll put one I'm not so keen on first because the first one sometimes doesn't work because the plate needs hydrating. So I'll put that one on, which is nice, but that I think looks exciting. Okay, put it down, lower it, rub it down fairly hard. All over, no air bubbles, got some there, try and get those out. Now we'll see, lift up. Ooh, it is working. Now, if my plate wasn't that colour, you'd see that very clearly. Perhaps you can't see it, but it's there. The image has transferred. Keep these because they can look quite exciting as well in a collage. So don't throw those away. Keep them. Now, you put the paper down quickly. Okay, there. And you rub it down. Could put the roller over, but I'm afraid it's going to stick too hard. Oh no, that's worked. And then you pull it up gently and you get this lovely image which is slightly sort of faded. And then what you can do is, we'll do another one, we'll do that one. I say you can paint over the top as well. You can print over the top, you can also paint over the top. It does, that I have to tell you is rare. I think it's because I've been at it quite a long time and I know that if I put too much ink on, it is not going to work. So don't be disappointed, just carry on, persevere, and it will work. Lower the image. Doesn't really matter where because they're going to be ripped and used in a collage probably, so you don't have to be too particular about that. Rub it down hard. Get rid of any air bubbles. And expect to be disappointed and then be excited if it works. That's what I think of this. I think that's worked. Trouble is my gelatine plate is quite dark, but I think that has worked. when you get yours, it'll be all nice and transparent. But yes, if you stand in the right light, you can see that that lovely image of the eye has come in, and I'm going to keep that because that can go in a collage as well. My build up of things there, and then quickly put your paper over the top and rub hard. And lift it up gently. Has it printed? Yes, it has. Well, it has actually. It's quite that's quite mystical. You could always draw over it or whatever. But there's the nose and the eyes, and it's a bit obscure, but I quite like that. Right, I'm going to try another one. And we'll try a different colour. Try red. Now, choose your image, and I'm going to choose that one. It's just the darker areas that will come out, but we'll try that. Quite dramatic. Depending on how it comes out. Yep, that's gone on beautifully. Paper done. Well, this should work well. I'll give it a little roll because I think it's going to be a good one. Oh, I've ripped the paper, never mind. This is going to work well, yes. Oh, this is because I've rolled too hard. I'm going to take it over from the side so I don't completely rip the paper. Oh, on the other side. Pick that up with my fingers. Stuck to the plate, but it's all right. Be okay. And there. Very dramatic. Now we'll do a one colour print, and then I'll show you how you can colour over the top and use stuff. Okay, let's do a two colour print. We'll do reds. If that will still work on there, possibly. Red here. And green. Hope that's not too much ink. It should be okay. Image ready. I'm going to roll on also. I put red on. I've got some yellow on. Try. Up. Oh yes, that's come out really well. Look at that too. That can be used. And we'll print from that. mustn't rip the paper this time, so I'm not going to roll it. That was obviously a bit too brutal. It's my paper ripped. Now, it's going to be quite something. And then, that's with several cards rolled together. So when you've got the quite a few of these, and you think you might want to make them look a bit more exciting, you can make sure it's dry. Yep. You can paint over, add colours. Start with it very transparent because you don't want to completely take away the image. You can use the paint sticks, which are pretty good. You can draw. I mean, you could even, I'm not sure that I would enhance the image, but you can. You could work with a felt pen, fine line or something and enhance the image, but I quite like the sort of faded look. And that takes away from that, but you could do that. White is nice, let's try white. So, you know, you can experiment because you could actually do so many of these so that you can experiment, get the desired effect. Try a bit of pink over the top. The image, as long as you keep the paint fairly transparent and that dries, that will actually, the image will show through. Don't use the paint too heavily. Let's try that one. You can write on them, or what you can do is, quite like that, those stripes there. Wait for that stripe, different colours, maybe a different colour there. Let's try yellow there. Maybe just experiment with colour, and you can either use them sparingly, as in mixed with other media as a background, or you could actually have a whole composition by putting them, that's too heavy that one, but by sort of putting them together. So, it could be quite interesting, or you could just have one somewhere in your composition which fits in somehow with the theme, or is just an abstract in itself. Okay, so that's those. Now the other, one other type of image printing, reverse image printing, which means that if the image comes out back to front, as in lino or woodcut, it doesn't with this, it comes out the same way round, it's not reverse. So type will come out and read as it is on the paper. But the other form of this is, or another form, is reverse image printing. And for that, you need a photocopy, probably inkjet paper, I think is best, on inkjet. And you put a layer of Mod Podge on it. This is probably the safest way to do a reverse image transfer, because otherwise it can be dodgy, but this should work. So you have a photocopy and you're going to reverse this image onto something so that it comes out on another sheet of paper. It'll come out back to front. So you Put a layer of this over the top. Let's do both of them. I hope it has got some lovely writing on there as well. It's from an old book of prints. Photocopy. Photocopy is what you need for this. You can actually, sometimes it works with other illustrations, but I think photocopying is your best bet, and preferably from an inkjet printer. Press that down onto a piece of white paper, wipe it off, and you rub it down hard, really hard. Now unfortunately I can't show you this one actually coming off because it has to dry really, really well, and not too quickly as in with a fan, just let it dry. Probably for an hour or so, but preferably do a lot of them and then take them up the next day. And then they come through onto the paper. This is where I've rubbed off here. They will come through in reverse. Some of the paper left, the image will come through. That, when it dries, will be a little bit softer than that. But what you do is you rub off the back. I'm going to put green paint on here, so it doesn't matter if that's getting dirty. You rub off the back and the image, so this will rub off and the image will be left on this paper. So you're then left, this is what you're left with on the paper when that dries overnight, and you then probably be a good idea then to spray it with a diffuser like that. This can't come up now because it's not time yet. And then you rub and the paper comes up and the image is left like that. And then you can, if you want to, this could go on to a coloured background as well. You could include colour over him, on him. You can see there's some paper still underneath there to be rubbed off. Just rub, hasn't quite come off. That's quite a long process, this one, but it can be nice. And you can then include it in your final piece, or whatever you're working on. Maybe it's something to do with the sea, or you can build up various colours there. This should work here, if I put water on top of it. Let's try it. That's a paint stick, and you water it. Some green on top of that. Building up colour. Let's go on with these, building them up. But watercolour is great. You can just blend any colours you like then. So that is another form. That is reverse image transfer, because it comes out back to front. And it, if anything, is slightly more difficult than the other one, only in that, again, some photocopies work, some don't, but you will get there if you persevere, and you'll get a lovely image. And then you can use paint with it, or you can have tissue paper with it, anything you want to experiment. So that is printing. Now I'm going to talk about one other form of printing, which I am using for my work at the moment. That's why I'm just going to talk briefly about it and show you the tools that I use. And then I'll show you some finished examples. And these I print onto, it's woodcut, wood block printing, which is similar to lino, a bit more hard work, but I quite like that. It's very sort of physical, and it's a slightly more brutal, a rougher finish, I think, in a way, but can be quite fine. And backgrounds are great, unless you're doing the classic woodcut, which tends to be sort of black on white. But I don't do much of that. I have done some, but not a lot. Okay, so for woodcut printing, it's not expensive actually. These tools are not the really expensive ones, but they're fine. And I got them from online. And you need, the essential ones are a scooping tool and a V-shaped tool and one like that, it's a sort of knife. And these you can use as well. They're different scoopers and a different V-shape. One of the most important things, I don't even find this boring, I quite like it, this is sort of physical, is your sharpening equipment. So this is a bit of slipstone, again, get it online, and you can put oil on it, which is better, but I'm putting water on it today. And then you have to, when you get the thing, you'll get all the instructions in it, but you have to, or it's very hard work, sharpen, always keep your hand behind, sharpen the blades, otherwise it's really hard work. And you'll get instructions with it, but that. And this is another, I usually tend to do a bit of both. This is another sharpener which you get online, specifically for wood cutting tools. See, lino is much softer. You don't need to do this nearly as much. And then you sharpen on there. Again, it comes with wonderful instructions. You'll see pictures of it online, images. And then so you make sure your tools are really sharp. And then you'll need a brayer for pressing down and rollers. And obviously printing inks. Now, there are all sorts of printing inks. I mean, the oil printing inks are beautiful, but they are a nightmare to clean and so on. So I've actually, with a lot of my work, I've used acrylic block printing ink. Actually, I don't think this is acrylic. I think it might be even, anyway, it's just called block printing ink. And it's not oil-based, so it's very easy to clean. But you can use oil-based inks, as I say, beautiful colours. And you roll out in the same way that I did before, and then you've cut your wood block, you print onto the wood block, you put the paint onto the wood block, and you take a print, and then I will show you some of the results that I've got with that. Now this, just going to show you some of my work, because in it you can see examples of what I've been talking about. So this was for a project that I was doing on homeless people, and so I've used a mixed media with an image, a photographic image. And this was a chap, Dave, and his dog Sophie, who I got to know quite a bit, and we talked, and then I started my piece of work based on the photographs, obviously with his permission. So I took the photographs, I took the images, and you can see the basic image there. There's Dave with Sophie, who sadly is now dead, and he's got a different dog. Anyway, that is Dave and Sophie, who had one blue eye and one different coloured eye, and she was wonderful. And I then did my background using all the things that we've talked about, really. Printing and some text and slightly sort of pavementy depressing looking colours there. And then here, some more text in here. I think these were to do with pieces of cardboard that he had around him. And so they're not sort of definite sentences, they're just parts of sentences. And then here, I've written on myself, because I don't know, I just felt I wanted to, it's a sort of homage to Sophie, who has since died. But what you can see is that it's extremely, I hope you can see, very personal to me, and I have combined all sorts of media and used those to show off the subject, which was very important to me, and it's just an extension really of photography. I mean, it's different, except you do have to take, it doesn't have to be a brilliant image at all, but an interesting image, and that one obviously is a heartfelt image. But I've kept to a sort of colour, quite restricted colour, which works pretty well for any subject. But of course you can go mad and use hundreds of colours, but restricted colour is great, and then black and white, which is very important. So the basis of that is the photograph, and then this is a print of it, great big G-clay print, but what I did was I did quite a lot of the background, then I put on the photograph, and then I worked over the top as well. So it's a sort of layered, very layered effect. So that is totally mixed media. And then I'll show you two other pieces which are from mixed media again. This one is actually, it's a woodblock print. I talked about the implements you have to use for that, the tools, and the fact that it's quite a sort of physical process. So this was a project that I did on faces, human faces, female faces actually, and again, I very much incorporated that print with mixed media. Now, part of this behind, this is not a print, this is all different surfaces which you can actually feel, and it's got chalk, paint, other things printed on top, type, lots of things going on there. Hopefully there's enough calm in it for the image to show and be effective. Some of this is photographs that I have, this bit here, photographs that I took in Paris, partly graffiti, partly ripped photos, and then I had that enlarged, and then I painted and added to that, and then I printed the wood block on top. For me, that is very satisfying. I just find it a very good process, having these interesting backgrounds. I'll show you one more, which is much more subtle. This is the same image, but this is just done with colour behind. It's the same block, and you can use, a bit like Andy Warhol, with his silk screen, you can use the block 50 times. That's the great thing about it. You've got this piece of wood that's cut, and you can do it in so many different ways. And I only do one of each, so they are a one-off print. So again, I have worked on the background with chalk, pastel, ripped paper, that's the edge of a drawing pad. I worked out a colour scheme. I just went with pinks and blues and violets and a little bit of nearly white, a little bit of black. And then I printed, but not so harshly, because I wanted a sort of slightly more faded, ethereal effect, the block on top of it. And you could do that in, as I say, as many versions as you like, and they are still unique because there's only one of them, that version, even though the block has been used several times.